Peace, family. Peace, peace, peace. Love and light. I hope all is well. Welcome in. We going live on a late night. I hope you have everything that you need to chill with me tonight. So, Sybil's book is resurfacing in the algorithm, and I actually went to Amazon bookstore online and tried to find the book. Now it's saying that it's not available for print. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it's not available anymore, but there was no price and no option to check out. So I'm going to assume that, she's not printing any more copies. Um, if anyone come across this video and you guys know a way to get a hold of the book, please let me know, because I would actually love to have the paperback copy. And yeah, so let's go ahead and jump right on in, y'all, because we're doing chapters 1 through 3. This is an audio. The T starts off, I believe Stinson has the soup, narrates the second part, and I forget the third narrator's name, but all beautiful ladies that came together and read this book. And shout out to all the ladies that did come together. This is y'all, look, I'm gonna just stop talking, but the book, I like it so far. It's a great book. I want to get my hands on it. Peace to the gods and goddesses. I'll be giving a little commentary here and there, but for the most part, I'll just be letting it play through. All right. Let's go ahead and begin. Make sure y'all smash that like button for me, please. It's a free way that you can help support the channel. Everything else that you guys need to know to help support and get in touch with me is scrolling across the screen.
How to get out of a cult. The truth must be told. Introduction. It all started back in 2016 when I heard a man who went by the name of Nature Boy speaking about nature and how he was healed by the earth. I was completely captivated by his passion and conviction of his truth. I listened to him speak of himself as God, and this completely blew my mind. I knew in my heart this was true. I am God, but I never actually heard someone say it, especially not a beautiful black man. It's important I tell you about my childhood so you can understand the signs of a truth seeker. Someone who was always learning and willing to explore at all costs for the truth. The most I ever heard was through Jesus you get to God. And from being raised by my adopted parents as Jehovah's Witness, I was taught that you can pray directly to God and not need to go through any man. Meanwhile, the whole religion was a complete mind control of being separate from the world. And I lived a robotic life and never got to experience any childhood normalcy for 13 years. They shunned any idea of thinking outside of the box. They said interpreting dreams, astrology, premonitions, visions, worldly ambitions, fame and wealth, and college education was all demonic, and that the world was ending soon.
Now, I can definitely see how someone with that background would be led to, lure themselves into this cult lifestyle, especially one that is, you know, based based in spirituality and kind of like this whole pro-black aspect to it. I don't know too much about Jehovah Witness, but I know that they're a very strict sect in what, Christianity or some shit like that. So yeah, just connecting the dots, y'all. Connecting the dots. That makes a lot of sense.
So your only purpose in life is to preach door to door and to warn the world that if they didn't conform to becoming a Jehovah's Witness, that they would die in Armageddon. If anyone tried to leave the religion, your family would disown you as if you had died. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but what's the definition of a cult again? Things that make you go, So, spiritual...
Yeah, she literally grew up in a cult already. Jehovah's Witness, that's a whole cult. Wow.
Spirituality has always been my obsession since I was 7 years old. My mother had a life battle with drugs and alcohol addiction. She would have me hold her rubber band around her arm really tight so she could inject herself. And she would tell me it was her medicine time. I hated how she became incoherent and drowsy every time she took her medicine.
Damn.
So I remember I would escape by pretending I was a mermaid and tie my feet with a pillowcase so that I could swim on the bed and sing Celine Dion songs like a mystical ladyfish. A mermaid. I began asking a lot of questions and always knew I was magical, and everyone around me knew that I was a very peculiar girl. Growing up being passed around from different family members home to home before being adopted by our Jehovah's Witness family, I learned a lot of different religions. Seventh-day Adventist, Catholic, Christianity, and even voodoo. But my biological family and I never got to talk about spirituality, although I knew my mom believed in the stories my grandma told her about voodoo and people putting curses on her because of jealousy. And she says after her and my dad divorced, she fell deeper into drugs. But my grandmother felt it was spells put on her. The mystical world was my favorite, but I was taught it was a dark world that Satan runs. Nature Boy really had me hypnotized by the third video. Every day I became obsessed with his knowledge, teachings, and understanding. By the third video I watched about the earth and the female male Adam, I was sold. Every word he spoke with such vigor and certainty kept me completely flabbergasted. I began to follow him on Facebook and Instagram and listen to him speak live and interact with hundreds of people. I would be at work, and every break I got, I'd soak up his knowledge and watch him win debates and teach on how to understand that you are God. Speaking of work, I was working in Manhattan, making 6 figures a year, and yet I was still dissatisfied spiritually. I wanted to discover and know the deep truths of life, and I was willing to make the sacrifices. My position as a national trainer afforded me to travel.
Hold on, she was making what? She she said 6 figures. 6 of them things. Sybil, mama, you could have built a cult of your own. Now, chair. 6 feet. Chair.
Well, 80% of the US, and I've always been a travel connoisseur anyway. I performed with prowess of the Fugees in Russia. I lived in South Africa for over a year, which was very Christian, by the way. I've been to a lot of islands, St. Kitts, Bahamas, Haiti, Jamaica, and all the Virgin Islands. I produced my Dream Awake music video in Hawaii as an underwater singing mermaid. I would say I've really enjoyed my life thus far, and yet I was so desperate for more spirituality. I spent at least over $100,000 in seminars, retreats, elite coaching, and even therapy, yet I was still searching. Something about Babaji had me hypnotized. I got so obsessed that I began to sleep at night with his videos playing in my headphones and waking up to his voice and sometimes not able to get up because of being so drowned in his teachings. I didn't care that he looked like a wild man in the woods spazzing out every second. I felt his passion, and the jungle man was very intriguing for me. Slowly but surely, I was getting closer and closer to him. I would rehearse scenarios of conversations with him in my mind. I would imagine him embracing me and accepting me as his wife. I would see myself singing to him and him applauding me on and encouraging me. Our first time talking, he told me that I should quit my job and only sing because I had such a special gift. He became my hero, my guru, best friend, and lover, all at the same time emotionally. Meanwhile, we still never actually met in person yet. After 2 years of this fantasy, I started to ask him questions in the comment section during his lives. I was gaining confidence to get closer to him. The biggest obstacle I had with him was when he would talk about polygamy. I got really enraged. His beautiful, direct, spiritual wife, Nana, was someone I adored. She was so powerful and spicy, and I saw so much of myself in her, the good and the not so good. She was very jealous about him being with other women, and she openly expressed her anger and frustration of how it affected their relationship. I remember a live she did crying about how her debilitations in her astrological chart kept her from allowing him to be polygamous, and that she couldn't help herself because she always wanted a husband and a family monogamously. The other women at the time were very open about their love for Balaji. I would watch these absolutely gorgeous women all profess Babaji's knowledge and wisdom, and I was completely baffled. I couldn't fathom how these women accepted polygamy, though. I was much more in tune with Nana, who was not here for it and would create all kinds of problems from expressing her disapproval of his desires, what she referred to as a sex demon that he had that caused him to need so many women. However, he explained it as being his nature to desire multiple women and his love for each and every one of them. Later on, after we became close, he admitted to me that he was not really with all the wives, that he was doing it for the public and for the mission, but I'll get to that in detail a little later. At this point, I became so curious and in love with Nana that I started to connect with her more than Baba G. I felt if she couldn't get through polygamy, neither could I. Anytime she would go live, I was hanging on to her every word about her emotions to see if I could rise to the challenge of accepting Baba G's polygamy teachings. Slowly but surely, Nana got her way, or that's what they showed us publicly, if you will, that her and Baba G were monogamous and that he is going to adjust to being a husband only to Nana for the sake of his daughter and his new findings of his chart that showed he has a program of being a family man. For a while, they posted the family pictures and did lives together promoting their twin flame love and that they were extremely happy. Baba G was so peaceful and full of life with the new monogamous family structure. Anything he believed at that moment, he convinced anyone to believe in because of his simpatico way of speaking and charm, especially with the women. During this time, they also promoted all of the previous directs with their new mates in carbonation. A lot of the followers gave pushback that he was passing the women along to the other men in the cult, but he explained that this was the new tribe unity of each family. He began teaching that family is everything, that the divine union of masculine and feminine was the truth, and that the polygamy was his demons working through him. He professed his love for Nana and said that she was the only woman that he needed. I literally cried on the other end of my cell phone. I screamed, jumped, sang, and truly felt like I had found the Messiah because he overcame his demons. I felt like love had won. I felt like this man was truly the light of my world, and I fell deeper in love with him as my guru. I felt he had been sent for me to witness the healing of the black man. Every day he would give new downloads of knowledge, and he would talk about how important it is to put the mission of carbonation first, and that this was the only way to salvation. As each second passed, I was glued to my phone. I turned on all the notifications on him and Nana's page and couldn't spend one moment without checking in to see any updates. There were times I forgot to eat. On my days off of work, I would stay in bed and watch as many videos as I could. I never got enough of carbonation. I wasn't interested in going out or talking to any of my family or friends outside of carbonation. I would send hundreds of links to anyone who would listen. I was no longer afraid of what people would think of me. I had found the Messiah, and no one could tell me different. I was literally a virtual carbonation member, and I truly believed him when he said this was the only way to salvation. After the third year, I began to feel like this was my real family. Carbonation began to feel like the only people who understood me. Remember, when I say carbonation, I am speaking of Baba G, the melanated mystic, the Most High Prophet, the Black Messiah, etc. I later learned this wasn't a tribe or family, but a man who created a curriculum of teaching and lifestyle, which formed the Carbonation Cult. At first, I was completely and utterly blown away by this man and everyone who joined the cult. There was nothing that could convince me otherwise. As he kept promoting the family structure and the tribes, I began to feel myself feeling more comfortable. He was now a good, monogamous man, teaching and loving his family. When he went live with Nana, I began to join in and spoke about how much I loved the two of them together and how happy I was for them. I cried many times talking on live with them, and they both knew me very well as a true carbonation supporter. I began to donate regularly every time I got paid. I would consider it as tithing, and it felt like I was truly supporting my family. A few months of total bliss was how I would describe my emotions for carbonation. I would send Baba G DMs telling him how happy I was about what he was doing. We began to talk all the time via DM. He could do no wrong in my eyes. However, slowly but surely my fairy tale started to fade. He got arrested and Nana was asking all of the carbonation family to help with donations so that he could get out. I sent the entire bail money and he was released the same day from the Nicaragua police. One day he came on live saying that he was practicing polygamy again and that he couldn't go against his nature anymore. He said that his soul was not for sale and that he could no longer live just to make Nana happy and that he was giving up his daughter and family so that he could live as the God that he is. I was completely devastated. He began sending me DMs after that live about having feelings for me and said he wanted me to be his wife. He asked me for my phone number, and that's where we started to become very intimate about our astrological charts. He asked me to pay to do my individual chart and a compatibility chart report together. When we got the results, it showed that we had a very strong focus on a spiritual mission together, and that I would defend him at all costs, no matter what people said about him. It showed that he would be hypnotized by me, and that we would have a very deep connection. It said we would be very fertile with children, and that he would awaken a lot of new philosophies and spiritual ideas in me that would change my life. It also spoke about the challenges we would have, that I would be more focused on the mission and too independent instead of our relationship, which he requires 24/7 care, even though he denies it. It said that I would have to compromise a lot, and that we both would have to give each other freedom, but that we would also be very inseparable if we lived in the same space together, because we would love each other's company. This really stirred up a fire in both of us. We talked for many hours regularly and would fall asleep on the phone together. He then became very aggressive about me needing me to send news to him. I explained this isn't something I believed in, and that didn't feel comfortable. He got very upset about that and said that I was an old dog and he couldn't teach me new tricks because my cup was full and my mind was outdated. He would constantly iterate that I needed to open up to him and submit and stop resisting. I began to hate that word, resist. Anytime I disagreed with something he said or spoke about on live, he would say that I'm being resistant. I started to get very frustrated because it's as if I couldn't have my own opinion about anything. He told me my only mission was to submit to him and proclaim the message. He explained that my life would belong to him as his wife in carbonation, that my womb belonged to him, and that the first time we had sex, he would impregnate me and have his baby. He would send me a lot of sex videos on him and Nana and still asking me to send nudes. It started to feel very sexual, and every time we spoke, it was less about the knowledge and more about the sex. He told me that as his wife, I had to fully submit, which meant swallowing his cum, having anal sex, and letting him come inside of me, and that vaginal sex was only for when I was ovulating so that his sperm wouldn't be wasted. He taught me that sex is an energy exchange and that his sperm contains
Oh my. Oh my.
his spirit and DNA, which he needed to fill me up with in order for me to truly embody the knowledge. I
Oh my.
asked him why. He said it was the only true way to receive his spirit and knowledge. I was very upset because I told him I would not have anal sex, and he then said I couldn't be his wife. He said all his wives have anal sex with him, and that it's mandatory. He said the vagina kills the sperm if I am not ovulating at the time, and that his sperm was too powerful to waste. I told him I wasn't comfortable about the requirements after that talk. I didn't hear from him as much. He would only talk to me on live about questions I had or in the comment section. A few weeks passed and he called me saying the family was in trouble and he needed my financial help because his PayPal had $4,000 that was frozen and he really needed the money to relocate urgently. I sent him money even though I was still upset because nothing was more important to me than the mission. A few weeks later, he had decided that him and Nana would be back to monogamy again, but that he still had feelings for the previous polygamous wife, Malia, but she would have to return back to her previous partner, Pisces. I was so furious about this. I called into the live and told him how upset I was about him passing the women back and forth to the men every time he decided to change his mind, and that the feelings of the men for the women weren't being considered on his emotional roller coaster. Although I was in fact happy to see him and Nana together again, I told him on live that if he went back to polygamy, I would be done with carbonation. He told me I shouldn't be that way and that I needed to support the mission no matter what. At this point, I felt very vested in carbonation since I was donating and contributing to the cause on a regular basis. To my surprise, he then began to WhatsApp me saying that he really wanted me to be his wife and that he is only with Nana so he doesn't lose his daughter. I told him I didn't believe that because I felt like he was in love with Nana and that the only way I would be his wife is if Nana approves of it and that it would have to be transparent. He explained that he would have me come in as a student until Nana got over her demons, but that eventually she would know that I was his wife and on his level. He explained that the universe told him he needed a mature woman who the other women could look up to. He told me to counsel Nana and help her mature as a woman because she didn't have enough experience to deal with him and that they had nothing in common. He kept repeating he was only with her for his daughter. I told him I didn't like the idea and that he would need to be open with Nana in order for me to join Carbonation and be with him. He told me I needed to stop resisting and that he would tell Nana eventually, but that he would not stop loving me because of Nana. He told me he would make love to only her and I until she matured more to understand. It was all such a blur and so confusing. It felt like he was all over the place, and I was so emotionally invested in him and Nana and felt it would be better if I wait before I joined until he was polygamous again, but only with me as his second wife, as he convinced me. I figured if Nana and I were the only wives as he told me, it would balance the tribe. He got very upset and said,
Oh, so Nature Boy promised Sybil that she would be his second wife before she came. I never knew that. I never ever knew that. Back to it, y'all. Like I said, I'm gonna give a little commentary here and there, but I'm gonna just let it roll through for the most part.
still resisting. I knew that was true at the time, and I wasn't going to budge because I didn't like the arrangement he wanted to make. I kind of backed away for a little while and noticed a few weeks later that Nana was gone and that he had his multiple wives again. He was with Eferu, Aya, Malia, Nateri, and Star. He began doing all kinds of wild parties and having sex on the Instagram live in the dark, getting drunk on camera every night, strip dancing, having the wives show how to give oral sex on a cucumber, particularly Malia and Eferu.
Oh
Then he
my.
began showing their ass on pictures. He made all the wives get the tattoo of his name on them and promoted the pictures everywhere. I messaged him and told him that I hated what he was doing to the women and that it was a disgrace and that I wouldn't support him anymore if he didn't stop. I told him whenever Nana leaves, he becomes reckless and loses himself. He explained that he was entertaining the audience to create shock value and buzz, but that he wanted to be with me and that he loved me. I told him I couldn't handle his escapades and that I would need structure. He promised me that everyone would know who I am as his wife and a leader to the younger women as an elder. So finally, after he had a rebuttal for everything I said, I asked if he is willing to accept that I didn't want to have anal sex since I never did it before and at the time felt it was unnatural. He told me no, that anal sex was a must in order to be his wife, and I asked if he was willing to let go of me on the entire mission just for anal sex. He never responded. Later that week, he sent me videos of his party he was hosting with the family dancing, having a good time. He also sent an old video of having anal sex with Nana. I told him I hated it, and it seemed like she wasn't enjoying it because she made no sounds. It was kind of weird watching her in that light. He told me he only uses saliva and that Nana just had a nasty attitude like she always does, which is why she didn't make noises. He explained that in order for me to truly embody the knowledge, anal sex was necessary because his DNA would go directly into my bloodstream. I started to do research on anal sex and sperm. The more I learned, the more it terrified me. Or because all he wants to do is humiliate me if he asks me for it, and that there's no reason to do that with a man, even if he is my husband. I think I was in my early teens when he said that, but didn't understand backdoor until I was 21 when I began to be sexually active. When I realized what it meant for my older 33-year-old boyfriend, I was mortified but completely understood why he said it. This made me have a big red flag for Baba G and his demands to dominate me with anal sex. A week later, I got the worst news of my life. My baby sister had suddenly died at the age of 33 on April 15, 2020. I could have never imagined such tragic news. I was devastated and in utter shock. I wailed for days. I had texted him and he called me right away to console me. We talked for hours. I shared her beautiful photos and he allowed me to mourn. He was very comforting and loving. I felt so helpless. Here I am, this spiritually in tune woman, always explaining how death is only a transition, but this loss was too shocking for my system to handle. He assured me that he was here for me. I cried for weeks and isolated myself, and then family and friends had a memorial for her because she was cremated at the hospital. So it was truly heartbreaking. We didn't even get to have a decent burial. After I returned from her memorial, Baba G told me that Nana G left and that he would come see me. That day, we actually spent the whole afternoon on IG Live. We talked, debated, I cried about my sister. He even got me to dance and sing for hours. He told me I was his mermaid and his real wife and that he wanted to come and see me in person, and I told him yes. When he was on his way to my house late that night, he FaceTimed me and we talked and laughed and we were really excited to see each other. But somehow I started to get nervous and I kept asking him to come in the morning instead because it was around 10 p.m. at night and the drive was 2 hours away. He started getting upset, saying that he had already left and was on his way, but I still hadn't given him the addresses yet. I didn't want to be in a compromising situation since it was so late. And I remember on a live previously when I told him I don't have sex right away, that he said he doesn't play that. And in order to be with him, you had to submit immediately. He even put his wives on the lives and asked ladies, are you allowed to wait before you have sex with me? They all said no. I remember Aya in particular twisting her lip, like girl please, and shaking her index and mouthing no, no, no. He asked me what's the longest I had a guy wait to be with me, and I told him a year. He said, oh, hell no, that nigga didn't try to rape you? Shit, that's crazy. You better be happy he didn't, because a real nigga would just taking that shit. There's no way I'm waiting that long for anyone. That definitely stayed in my subconscious. I kept delaying and finally told him I wasn't ready to see him and I would have preferred the morning better. In the middle of being on the phone with him, my father sent me a random message out of nowhere saying that I shouldn't go to the hotel due to COVID-19. It was so surreal that it made me jump. I immediately told him that I didn't want him to come anymore and sent him a screenshot message my father had sent me. We were both frazzled about it, but he said that I should live my own life and not worry about what my father said. But I was completely taken aback and told him I wasn't ready even to the point of making excuses that I had smoked a cigarette and didn't want him around that. The conversation escalated to 100 really quick, and he yelled and cursed at me, saying that if I didn't let him come see me that night, that he would never come see me again. So we hung up, and he didn't talk to me for a few days until he needed my help again. He told me that Nana...
At that point, in my opinion, that's enough red flags. I don't want to see no more red, right? Like that's enough right there. Boom, boom. That I mean, there was enough red flags at that point. I've already counted like 5.
left and that he was leaving the group and allowing them to go to Hawaii on their own because they needed to learn about life and see how valuable he really is. He asked me if we could travel together and proclaim the kingdom and that he would live with me because he trusts me and feels like we would be good travel buddies and be powerful. I immediately told him I didn't like the idea and that he should think about it first before making such a drastic decision. He got so angry with me and said I didn't trust him because if I did, my first answer would have been yes. I explained to him that I have a rule to always wait 24 hours before making any life-changing decisions. He told me he's not fucking with me anymore because I don't have his back and then hung up on me. I stayed silent. The next day he called me and asked, will I do it with him? And I told him of course I would support him no matter what, but that I didn't think it was a good choice. He told me he would call me back and I didn't hear from him until a week later. He sent me a live request on IG Live. And we really got into a heated discussion. He told me that I was resisting him. Somehow we got to talking about me not letting him come see me the previous week and how I was being fake and phony. I felt embarrassed about it. He talked to me in front of everyone. I even asked him why he was calling me a bitch and not to talk to me that way. He calmed down eventually and said I was capping and that he didn't want a beautiful chain I had bought for him, which hurt my feelings. Then his final question to me was, are you my wife? I took a long pause and said, time will tell, but that I only believed myself or Nana, or both of us together could be his wife. The live went viral. He called me a week later, which he then told me I was his wife and he needed me with him. He said that we were going to Hawaii with the family and that he wanted me to send him money to help buy tickets for myself and the family. He said I had to send my stimulus money right away and email my passport info so he could hurry up and book the tickets. And if I didn't, he was going to cut me off. So I told him yes and that I was 100% going with him. He didn't believe me, but he called me every day to send the money thereafter. Finally, 3 days later, I told him to come pick up his queen and that I was ready. He said he would come get me, only if it was to stay permanently, not just to visit. I told him, let's see each other and talk. So he told me he was on his way and that he had never done this before to go get a woman, that all the women have always come to him. but he drove to pick me up and we met for the first time in person. It was very surreal. I was super nervous at this point because we had such an unpredictable way of communicating. I knew if I said something wrong, he would get angry, so I stayed very calm. He pulled up in the driveway, texted me that he was outside, then stayed on the car speakerphone for about 30 minutes before he came out of the car, which was annoying, but he was having a meeting with Solar and the men about him having a superiority complex they were experiencing. When he finally got out of the car, he was still on the phone, no eye contact yet, so I couldn't really feel his energy. He hugged me tight with one arm, but I was so happy to see him even though I wanted more of a welcoming hug. But because he was on the phone, I let it be. When he hugged me, my face fit right into his chest perfectly, even with his Taurus chain horns kind of dug into my neck, but he smelled like God, so I was in bliss. I complimented and told him smelled amazing, and he said, so do you, and finally looked me in the eye, and I was literally dead. He was more gorgeous than I imagined. I was excited all over again. I couldn't believe he was standing in front of me after so many years of being online or on the phone. He was absolutely beautiful to me. His shoulders were huge. He stood like a tall giant next to me at 5'3". He was the sexiest man I ever laid eyes on, ever. I knew from that moment on my life would never be the same, but not exactly in the way I thought. He had already explained to me that if I'm coming to Carbonation, it would have to be to stay, not to visit and meet the family like I expressed I wanted. We talked for hours about my life and the changes ahead. He told me I would have to forget everything I've ever known and follow him, that I would have to totally submit my whole life to him, and that he now owns me. I sat and listened, but my heart was beating so fast I didn't know if I was alive or dreaming. I told him I was afraid, but I was also ready. I was in such a vulnerable position. I wanted to escape my life and feel like I was living for truth and to join the cult that I fully believed loved me and was truly my family. He told me to pack my bags and helped me organize my suitcase and told me I didn't need half of the clothes and things I was packing. So the separation anxiety had started that moment. I was packing and holding back the tears. He pretty much said no to every single item that I packed. It was hard, but he told me this is the easy part compared to what I'm about to face. By the time I finished packing, I was just surrendered. I wanted to free myself from attachment and simply let go of control. I wanted him to take over and guide me every step of the way, and he did. I felt so in love with him, while at the same time something still felt dangerous. So I had to keep convincing myself that no matter what, I was going. The entire time we talked, he never mentioned anything about being his wife. He never said, I love you, which is one of the first words he'd ever said to me online and over the phone. It's like I couldn't fully read him. He looked me in the eye to talk about all of the semantics, and he was extremely calm. I remember I had told him I love when he's really calm and cool. I let him do most of the talking. I offered him a bottle of water unopened, and he was scared to drink it. He told me he had a dream that someone in his tribe was going to poison him and kill him. I laughed it off, but all the bells went ringing off in my head. I thought he loved every single one of the members and that it was a tight bond of family unity and love. Do me a favor and remember this phrase. Nothing is what it seems. No thing. Then out of nowhere, he started telling me that his head was itching. And I don't mean like a little here and there. He actually started freaking me out and started scratching his head profusely, to the point where I told him I was going to Google the spiritual meaning of why the head itches. And we both busted out laughing when it said, when you are around new energy or a new environment, most sensitive, your head will itch. So then he told me to wash his hair for him. We went to the bathroom and got on his knees, turned on the water to cold, and literally started wetting his head. At this point, I'm like, what in the entire fudge is going on here? But then he was literally making oohs and ahs like it's still itching. OMG. Then he asked me if I had any natural soaps, and I had the eucalyptus bath and body works, which he said he loved, and he began washing his own head before I could touch it. He washed it like 3 times. I stood there with a dumb blank face, completely not comprehending what I was witnessing. I played cool, got him a clean towel, and he got up and said, ah, that's better. Boy, was I relieved. We went back downstairs and set up the comforters to lay down, and he put down his grounding mat and said, let's share this. He threw me off because I planned to sleep in my room upstairs, but it wasn't even an option. I was following his lead. Then he asked me what I had on under my dress, and I lifted it up and showed him my one-piece white lace lingerie. He said, wow, You got all that. I love how juicy you are. Turn around. And I did. And then he asked me, do you want to give me a gift tonight? And I said no. And he said, okay, and was very cool and calm. It was then I remembered the gold necklace I bought him with his personalized astrological chart medallion. I went and got it, and he loved it and put it on. He played music. We slept, and he held my hand intertwined fingers the entire night. The other hand he had over my head, and I could feel his energy completely dominating me, and I let him. I dreamt of my vagina being up in the air and someone was speaking into it. I couldn't speak or hear the voice, I only felt it in the dream. I saw myself come out of my body, but I didn't see Babaji laying there. I only saw myself laying and trying to get up, but I was frozen in the same position I went to sleep. I kept trying to get up, but I couldn't move. When we woke up the next morning and he was still holding my hand, and his first words were, I love myself, and I replied, I love myself. Chapter 1, My First Day in Carbonation, 5/28/2020. We drove about 30 minutes and he was very hungry, so we stopped at Waffle House. And he got an egg sandwich and pecan waffles, and I got the veg sandwich and hash browns. We ate and kept driving. I noticed he didn't open the door for me, so I paused until he came around and did it then. He said to me, oh, you want that shit too? With a smirk on his face. I laughed as he opened the door and said, I'm thankful. And I leaned into the driver's seat and opened his door from the inside. He got in and put the address to Atlanta in his GPS, and we were on our way. As we began talking, I was speaking on my sister, and he kept correcting me to say my Babylon sister, and it really annoyed me. And I was like, just give me a chance to get used to everything. He told me I was not ready and stopped at a gas station for gas. Then he asked me to look up my demons in my chart and read them out loud. I began to read them. Most of my debilitations were about me not conforming and being an independent thinker and needing freedom, and also that I was more focused on my work than on romance. It was kind of bizarre. I have always spoke about my greatest mission being to get free, freedom, following your own heart, and there it was. He started asking me how many IG accounts do I have. I told him a few. One account was my logo. I pledge allegiance to my heart. He told me that he would have the kids say, I pledge allegiance to the universe, because if the heart is not pure, you cannot pledge to it. But he liked the saying. He then started telling me that he has to give me a new name. He took about 20 minutes silent as I kept reading my explanations. He said that he had to really think on it, and it would have to be really good because I was his lucky charm and his demon at the same time. After about 20 minutes, he said, I got it. Earth. I was like, wow, I absolutely love it. Then he said, I chose that because. Y'all, it's just. It's too many red flags at this point, and they haven't even made it to the damn house in Atlanta yet, and she still went. I am appalled. I'm appalled. It has heart in it when you spell out letters. I literally felt like a whole new world had opened up. The Messiah had just given me my new name. Woo! I was on cloud nine, literally. As he continued driving, he told me that he had to change my passcode because everyone has the same passcode in the family. So the phone is always accessible to everyone at any time. I had no resistance, and he reset the password. He rearranged all of my apps and arranged my phone beautifully so that it was more organized according to purpose. Then I started telling him that I really wanted to be a student first. I didn't want to go in as a wife and that I wanted to learn. He told me that was the best thing so that the family can get to know me and I can earn being a leader and the family will appoint me themselves. He then said to me, I feel like you're hiding something and not telling me what's going on with you. I told him my sister was going to be a very big challenge and that she's been calling me like crazy and the entire family because I sent them all a text letting them know that I decided I am going on a spiritual journey and that they could follow me online to see what I'm learning. My voice was shaky and he could see that I was emotional. And he said to me, "You're not ready. I'm dropping you back off. Your cup is too full." I started to cry and asked, "What is he talking about?" He said that I didn't understand what this is and that I wasn't ready because if I didn't hate my family, I couldn't let them go. And to follow him as the Messiah, I had to empty my cup. And then he said he keeps getting warning signals to take me back home. So I stayed silent and let him turn back around. A part of me was relieved. I felt like Spirit was giving me a chance to escape. The day before, I asked the universe for a sign if I should go. Two random huge black dogs came out of nowhere and passed the far distance of the backyard, and it startled me. I looked up for 1 second and looked back down to see the dogs again, but they vanished. I even walked out to where I saw them, but there was nothing in sight. That moment flashed in my head as he drove me back. I knew this was the moment of chance. We pulled up to the driveway and I told him, "If you let me get out of this car, I'm never coming back. And just know that this was your decision." He paused and said, "Why did you let me drive all the way back and now you tell me this?" I told him I was being submissive and letting him lead. He got angry and yelled that I should have stopped him. But then he started the car again and he pulled off and said, "Once we leave, this is it. So make your decision." I doubted my intuition again, which had my hand on the door. But verbally, I said, "I'm not giving up this easy." It's the first day on the job, and I didn't want to quit and turned away while a tear streamed down my eye. He told me to keep reading my astrological debilitations, and I did. After about an hour driving, he asked me how I was feeling and if I'm really ready. I said yes, but can you tell me what he meant earlier by "I don't understand what this really is"? As I kept writing this, I'm hearing the song, "Move mountains. I rise up. I rise like the day. I rise up. I rise unafraid. I rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again." He responded and said, "You belong to me. You were sent to me. I own your soul. You belong to me now. Your womb belongs to me. You will have my baby." I gave him the side eye and he said, "Watch. You'll see." I could barely breathe. Then Niza called him crying, saying how she wasn't ready to be picked up because she felt ugly with short hair and overweight. He talked to her for a while, calming her down and to stop having Babylon thinking. He got off the phone with her and started explaining to me that all the girls there were little girls and he was their father and raising them. He said I was like a mixture of Nana and me, and that I was probably his demon because he would feel weak for me and fall for me. I was relieved he finally acknowledged me in that way. He told me I was exactly his type and that he had to really watch me, but that I was also his good luck being brought to him and that he could feel that. Then Joy called saying how no one in the house liked her and she was ready to go because no one in the house liked her and she was done. He pleaded with her and said she was taking away from the family and it was not right. She said her father was on his way to get her and that she was done. He asked her why didn't she call him first before making the decision, and she said she just couldn't stay anymore. He told her he was on his way to meet her and that he would see her back at the house. After he got off the phone with her, He told me she gets $3,000 a month from her military and that she had the truck for transportation, so she would be hurting the family. He told me that all of my money now belonged in the pot of carbonation and that everything I had, I have to give. Credit cards and bank accounts. I said, okay. We listened to music and sang along together. He played Feel So Good, which became one of my favorite songs to date from Carbonation Productions. We arrived at the house. When we pulled up, William came to the car and carried his belongings in before him. And as we approached the door, the entire tribe greeted with to salute him, standing front and at attention. It was really beautiful and welcoming. I felt everyone staring at me. They directed me to walk through the middle aisle, and he told everyone to welcome Earth. She's finally here. This is Mama Earth. Everyone clapped and cheered me in. Malia was so sweet and warm and told me that I smelled so good. She was so soft, and I loved her smell too. I remember hugging the Terry and calling her Nay, and she corrected me and said, Nay Terry. And I smiled and said, oh, that's that Capricorn sauce right there. And she smiled. We all walked in behind Babaji into the living room, and everyone stood at attention again until he said, at ease. And everyone sat down. Babaji said that he could feel there was some bizarre energy happening while he was gone, and started asking what happened. Musa explained that Joy had left earlier that day, and apparently she had a dramatic exit. Babaji said, I spoke to her, but she has to learn the hard way. He then started interviewing me. Earth, what made you finally decide to come? I said, I finally got over myself and that I wanted to be closer to my higher self. And after my sister died, I realized life is too short and that I wanted to live in the frequency of people who understood me and would help me grow. And I was very adamant that I chose to be a student, not a wife, so that I could truly become the knowledge and love myself. He opened the floor and asked the family if they had any questions for me. They asked my sun, moon, and rising signs. Where's my Venus? I told them Capricorn, Sag, and Pisces, and they all loved that and said I was pretty balanced. Babaji then said he felt like his stomach was hurting, that someone in the room was holding some negative energy, and asked if anyone wanted to talk about it. But everyone stayed quiet except Sounds, who said, I feel like someone's holding something back and not expressing themselves. And Babaji said, man, work on y'all shit, because it's very painful and I'm tired and hungry. And asked for a ginger beer and offered me one as well. And explained since we had a long trip, I should have one, which I thought was weird that he had to explain that. So I brushed it away, but later on understood exactly what it all meant. He asked the family to let him get some rest and that he would see us all later. I was placed in a room with Mama Sheba and Jaomi, which replaced Joy's spot. We all slept on the floor. 4 of the other women slept in the hallway, pregnant Zoka, Syrian, Star, and Niza, who just arrived also. In the master room was Babaji, Malia, Aya, and Nateri. I absolutely loved Sheba. She's such a cool, calm, and collected, down-to-earth woman. She was the kind of vibe I like. She showed me where I can place all of my belongings and was really welcoming. Jaomi was the most beautiful baby I had ever laid eyes on. His eyes and his skin were incredible. At first, he was distant with me and just stared at me the first couple of days, and then he became my bundle of love and joy with hugs and care. What a gift Xiaomi was to me to be able to experience such pureness of heart. The rest of the time was relaxing. Zoka made me the best quesadilla I ever had in life, and the rest of the day I spent chatting with Asia, Natiri, Sheba, and Zoka. We had lots of good girl talk, and it really felt like a lot of love. The routine daily was 9:30 a.m. morning meetings with only the women where we would discuss any concerns or questions. We were all delegated chores as well, like cleaning the bathroom, vacuuming the floor, arranging the suitcase of clothes, washing the clothes, and then kitchen duties. Throughout the day, we would have creative activities like making waist beads, songs, dancing, and even tarot readings. Anytime someone had emotions come up, we were able to call a meeting and get a healthier perspective on whatever it is we needed to address. The women are so powerful, and most were truly in tune with the knowledge, especially Efru. They all could recite and proclaim Babaji's message in their sleep. It was super inspiring. Sometimes throughout the day, Babaji would announce, "Pull up," which meant he had some new updates for us or downloads, which was always my favorite, and not so favorite was when someone needed to be corrected. The men were definitely more organized and disciplined than the women. The women were always emotional and having a feud amongst each other. I would always feel drained by it, but when I began to sit in on meetings and we would talk through the debilitations, it was very healing and many more breakthroughs in others, the more I was able to recognize and heal the traumas in myself. Slowly but surely, my demons began to surface, and I would get triggered by Babaji calling me out constantly, saying I was out of tune, that I was still in Babylon. One day during his pull up, he began to talk about the same feeling he was having of pain in his stomach, and that he felt it was coming from me because I hadn't dealt with my issues of disconnecting from my blood family. I was struggling deeply to be initiated in my entrance of completely letting go of all my attachments. It was extremely painful, especially since the only thing I told my family was that I have decided to follow my spiritual journey and that I wouldn't have a lot of access to my phone, but that they could still stay updated with me by information I posted online. Every day I got calls from family, especially my sister, who completely felt like I betrayed her by not telling her beforehand that I was making this decision. She was sending me dozens of messages daily. My ex boyfriend was calling and texting me nonstop as well. It was so overwhelming, and although I was excited to be in carbonation, I was conflicted with why I wasn't allowed to speak to my Babylon family. Neytiri and I related very deeply about our sister because she had a twin and she understood my pain. I understood hers. We had several crying sessions about it, but we would always decide that the mission is most important and that through us healing, we would be healing all of our blood family line. Babaji was not having it. He could feel everything. He told me I was still attached to my business I created and that my attachments to my family needed to be broken. And if I didn't let go, I was not going to last long. I then began to block some family and friends so that I didn't have to see the missed calls anymore. I delved into my work and focused on the mission. Whenever I was teaching, I wasn't able to go into the past. Babaji was still not happy with me, or even Natiri. He said we were both still holding on to attachments. As Capricorns, it was really hard for us. It's a stubborn sign and very much an independent perspective, which pushes you to totally be an individual. That night, Babaji called a meeting with me to report to Captain True and Musa. He asked me how much money did I have and told me I had to give it all to the carbonation pot. He asked if I had any credit cards. I told him I had about $1,200 in my checkings account left, and he said, I thought you had at least 3,000. But I told him, no, I don't. I was very tempted to give him my business account info, but after I saw what happened with Niza, my intuition kept telling me to say nothing. I had over 4K in my business account, but didn't have a card for it, so I figured also that was a sign. He had me open my Chase app account and look at the balance for the 1,200, and he gave my debit card to Captain True. Then they had me cash out the 1,200 to Professor Musa cash app. That day, I told him I wanted to play the lotto because Carbonation was going to get a lot of money. We did, and as I write this, until now, I haven't checked the tickets. Fast forward, every day as I kept busy and kept focusing on the knowledge, and I was becoming more used to everything else. However, there were other things that began to arise. Niza was ready to fight with Star on a daily basis. There was always arguing and yelling between them because Niza felt Star tries to overpower her, and she did. Star had a very dominant personality, so she would always try to get her way with bullying. In the beginning, she never really tried me, but I always noticed how she was. Before I fell fully asleep, Zopal came in and slept in the middle of the floor of me and Sybil. She came over to me and whispered, what was my credit score? I told her I didn't know because my student loans were pretty horrendous. Then she went to her phone and was typing. Then she came over again. You have an order to do a credit check report and send it to me when you're done. I nodded to her yes. I think that left me more speechless than when I got a hemorrhoid. I just couldn't imagine the audacity, and she made sure I couldn't rebuttal by telling me, I got an order, which means it comes from Babaji. This really left a bad taste in my mouth. I specifically remember Babaji always saying that anyone teaching conscious knowledge should never charge any money for it, and that it should be free, the way nature is free. Because waterfalls don't charge money, the flowers don't charge for the fragrance, and the oxygen from the trees is free. However, slowly but surely, I began to learn this had a much greater price than I bargained for. I used the credit check app she sent me, then airdropped her the score. I slept with a blank face on the entire night. Like, what the hell did I just sign up for? The next morning, we all acted like nothing ever happened, until I saw Malia standing in the corner and Nateri also in the room in the corner. I was super confused even though I saw it, that they would get punishments in the corner online. To see it in person felt daunting. Nateri cried the entire time in the corner, and Malia always took her punishment with the poker face. Maybe because she was so used to it, because practically every damn day her ass was in the corner, no cap. Every day. Another form of punishment was anytime you had to be corrected on doing a duty or anytime you had a bad attitude about something. One of the A team would have you do 25 squats on site. Yes, there are ranks of A, B, and C teams, and the A team is the highest who could delegate and discipline all of the other teams. I was always on the C team until the day before I left, and Babaji was the one who made the new rank, not the women. Many episodes after a few days of Niza spazzing out became so disturbing. She would literally sit in front of this mini mirror that she found, placed it on the windowsill, and stare at herself for hours at a time. No exaggeration. She tried to leave several times from the first day, but had cried about needing some of her $6,000 donation back in order to leave. But Babaji explained to her that all the money had been spent on Hawaii already, and that there was nothing that he could do but to put her in a hotel until she made other arrangements. But Niza went buck wild and insisted that Babaji could give her some of her money back and that she needed it, but eventually she calmed herself down and decided to stay. Later that night, Babaji called me to report to him. He was sitting in the closet, fully robed down and head wrapped. As I approached him, I could feel my heart racing. He sat in Indian style, and I stood about 5 feet away, and he told me to come closer. I took 2 steps. He told me to sit down. He looked at me straight in the eye and said, "So here we are." I replied, "Here we are, finally." He said, "I still feel pains in my stomach from you. You're still holding back." I told him my whole heart was open to him and that I didn't know what he was feeling. I told him I loved him deeply. He said, "But that's not enough." He said, "I want all of you, everything." I felt the gulp in my throat. I took a deep breath and tears fell down my eyes. And I sang, "I Want to Give You All My Love" by Mary J. Blige. And he said, "Why are you crying?" I said I couldn't believe that I had found the Messiah and that I was so honored to be in his presence. And I could feel that my life would never be the same. He smiled and went to his phone and asked if I had the pattern app. I said, "Not yet." He took my phone, downloaded it, and added my info. He went through my pictures and picked the one he loved. He added me as his friend and he said, "Read it out loud." We found out we had karmic contracts with each other and that our mission together was very powerful. He looked at me deeply in my eyes as he laid down sideways and I stayed Indian style. He said, "I don't know why, but I feel like I want to kiss you." So I said, "Oh, the stomach pain gone now, huh?" We laughed. I put my hand on his back and said, "Can you feel that?" And he said, "Feel what?" I said, "All my love." He came close and kissed me deeply. Then he stood me up as he kissed me and pulled me in close to him so that I could feel his 9 inches of excitement. I looked at him in shock and he smiled. I said sarcastically, "Musa, Musa, laughing." And he laughed and said, "Come here," and kissed me again. And then I walked away smiling. I was floating on another planet. He had me completely under his spell. He sent Aya to bring me a glass of wine after I got to my room, and I just lay smiling, and all the women were staring at me, waiting for me to say something, but I was speechless. Star came over and said, "Mama Earth, you okay?" with a smirk, and I said, "I'm great," and she laughed. They all thought we had sex because we were in the closet a while, and Natiri said, "We all know what happens when he pulls you in that closet." But I just laughed. He sent me a WhatsApp soon after and said that was nice, and that my lips and body felt so soft. "I want you." I replied, "Thank you. You're not so bad yourself," smirk emoji. "You are the most beautiful man I've ever seen," green heart emoji. "Musa Musa, my higher self." He wrote back, "Musa Musa, I love myself." Green heart emoji. I replied, "I love myself," and slept like a baby. Every day was always some sort of drama with someone, no matter what. Calling meetings was like using the bathroom. It became a norm. There was always some sort of issue and no time for knowledge and studying. The eating arrangements was also strange. We had to go by order from women with children, then the women, then the men. But Babaji always ate first and foremost. I also noticed he ate a different meal than us. He ate veggies in every meal and had special sauces and ginger beer and different glass bottled water, Mountain Valley water, my fave. Oh, I forgot to mention that during the time I had arrived at Carbonation, Babaji separated all of the couples. Everyone was single, except for himself, of course. Even Sheba and True were separated. No one was allowed sex or couple time because Babaji wanted them focused solely on the mission and their craft. That night, Zoko went missing from the room, and no one could find her when Babaji kept calling her to report to him. So he found out that her and Solar had snuck out to sleep in the tent together. She received punishment of standing in the corner for 2 hours the next morning. She even told us she no longer felt worthy to be on the 18. So Sheba had everyone vote that we still wanted her as a leader, as long as she learned from her mistakes. She took her punishment like a chief. That's one thing about Zoka. She was definitely a firecracker, brilliant, mysterious, sexual, and spicy all at the same time. I remember before I got there, because she's Haitian, I said I would totally drop to her. And well, I did. Kinda, sorta. But we'll get to that later. Anyway, things like this were happening constantly. So it's a lot to fit in all the drama in this book. But I sure will give it a go. One other thing was Asia leaving. She told me that she was not free to be herself and that no one there was behaving as divine woman having sex on live Instagram and that the women were very mean to her. She said it's not what it seems here and that she never sees Babaji and was only with him once and that was it. The next morning, her and I showered and brushed our teeth together, swapping swats. She kept telling me how beautiful my body was. Niza saw me too and said the same thing. It felt good because I was the eldest of all the women besides cooking in the house, and I truly love my body and take good care of it. But here we go again with Asia kept saying she was leaving. Shortly, Babaji had her. In 5 minutes, she was packing her stuff and left. There was literally never a dull moment within my first 72 hours. Oh, yeah. And the other thing that happened late that night in the wee hours after Zoka was True and Musa, who are the financial team. They were getting screamed at for over 3 hours about why they overspent money in the pot without Babaji's approval. The yelling and screaming was so turbulent the entire neighborhood could hear Babaji sounding off. I was in shock at how many hours he was yelling. Between Zoe and the finance team, we never slept. Chapter 2, Preparing for Hawaii. Babaji announced pull up early in the morning on May 31st to let us know that all tickets were purchased for Hawaii and how the arrangements were made. All of the women, except for me and Naza, were going to fly with him to California. We were all going to drive with the men 33 hours from Atlanta. I got very upset and started throwing a fit. I expressed how I didn't understand how I wasn't allowed to make eye contact with my brothers in the house, but he could send me on a 33-hour trip.
She was mad she wasn't able to get in that plane with them girls and stuff. He treated her just like she said she wanted. She wanted to be a student, and he treated her like that. Very manipulative, but yeah, child.
Away from him with them. He told me that they bought my ticket too late, and this was a consequence of not coming with him on the first trip he attempted to make to come see me. I was also concerned about being with Naza alone. God, I can only imagine. Yeah, that would be a concern of mine. As the only other female, because she could have a manic episode at any moment. So I was very uncomfortable. He said he trusted the guys and that I would be safe and not to worry. The meeting ended. This guy and his meetings. The meeting ended and we all went to pack. He asked everyone to pack lightly. The day for my departure was sooner than the other women because it would take 3 days to drive to California. We got on the road June 22nd at 5:30 a.m. It was 7 of us. Naza and I sat, although she put sat comfortably in the middle section with 2 separate seats and the studio equipment in the background. The studio equipment between the center. Caliber, Loyal, and Tron sat in the back, cramped up, the passenger seat, and Pussy's, Fuji, Kite, a lot of Ann's in there. Kite and Solar were in the back seat, very cramped up. We drove about 5 hours, then we stopped for lunch at Chipotle, and everyone had chicken burritos except for I and Naza. We had veg burritos. We drove another 5 hours and stopped somewhere in Arizona with a random capital Z in the middle, I think, and it was at this abandoned truck stop. I was not happy at all. As soon as we pulled up, it reminded me of a creepy movie. I thought we were stopping for a restroom, but Captain True called a meeting and told the men to set up tents. I was in shock and furious. I immediately walked out of the circle and called Baba G. I told him that I had no idea we were tenting overnight at a truck stop somewhere in Butthole Desert. Butthole Desert? Okay. And that I felt very unsafe and was not going to stay. What'd she think was going to happen in Butthole Desert? Anyway, I said it was ridiculous and that with so many men, there is no reason to stop. We could.
It's the butthole for me.
Just kept going, and that I would even drive if I had to, but I wasn't comfortable or safe. He told me that I was the one who decided I wanted to be a student, so this is what happens. And then he hung up on me. I sent him a WhatsApp message back saying that he lied to me and told me I would never leave his side ever again. But here I am in the middle of nowhere, and he's punishing me because I chose to be a student instead of a wife. Attached WhatsApp messages. Okay. I told him he just said everything he could do to get me here, and now he's just throwing me away like trash.
Yeah.
Why are people shocked with?
Right. Thank you, Stinson. Thank you, Stinson.
Just threw her away like trash.
Thank you.
He called me back and said I was being disrespectful, but I told him I was not. I was not safe, and that he didn't care. I then asked him, what did he mean by that? Because I chose to be a student. That's why I'm in this predicament. I asked him, is it because I'm not fucking you? Ooh. That's why I had to ride with these men for 33 hours. He went on to say the same BS story, that because I came to Carbonation after they booked tickets for with prices, who knows, were too high. And this is punishment from hesitation. I think she meant for hesitation. I was yelling so loud, Captain True came over and asked if I was good. And I told him, no, I'm not good. I didn't know I would be sleeping at a truck stop and that I was going to do. I can't even talk.
Would y'all have slept at that truck stop? Would y'all have acted like Sybil did, or would y'all have wrote it out? Leave your comment down in the comment section.
Which the guys kept setting up the tents, which were hidden way back in the forest area of the truck stop, which made me even more terrified that no one would be able to see us and that anything could happen. I mean, you are in butthole nowhere. I mean, anything could happen. Okay. Even with animals or something, Baba G kept yelling at me to calm down on the phone, and I couldn't. I was absolutely furious, and my blood boiling at this point. He had never heard me like this before, and said that the universe is teaching me a lesson, and that I need to stop trying to control everything and just the universe plan. Captain True, I can't do Captain True, my ass, okay, told me that I would be okay and that I needed to relax. And Naza told me the tent would be fine, and I'm just not used to it. So I felt like everyone was really trying to make me feel like I was crazy, as if we weren't in some abandoned truck stop that looked like a fucking murder scene in a horror movie. A murder scene? Was there blood? I mean, how did it look like a horror movie? A murder scene. If somebody could find butthole wherever, let me know. I told Bobby I couldn't believe he did this to me, and that I was so hurt that he didn't care about me. He told me, I'm not your boyfriend. You decided to be a student, so there's only so much I can do for you until you submit and stop resisting. I told him I hated him, but did you though? And that I can't believe he put me in this position. He told me I was being disrespectful and that he's not going to tolerate it, and that I could go home. So I told him, okay, I will. And he hung up on me. I went back to the car and sat in the back seat.
Do you see the manipulation though? Like super vindictive. Play with her mind. She did not give him the answer or the punani or the booty hole rather, child, the booty hole. So he's punishing her, Sybil, because she didn't give him the booty hole and the answer that he wanted. But she said all the right things like, I love you and blah, blah, blah. But, that wasn't enough. That was a clear sign right there. When you said, I love you, do you feel that? When she was talking about them laying down on the floor and, her putting her hand on his back and asking if he felt the love and all this bullshit. He clearly did not care about none of that. He ain't care about none of that. Okay. So there was like a lot of signs here, like before she even got to the place, let alone before they were taking the trip to Hawaii. So it's chill. Ooh, this is a bit merch.
And slammed the door. Tears were falling down my face, and I couldn't believe I had put myself in this position. I bet you couldn't. To leave my luxury home, family, to deal with this homeless sheet of sleeping in a tent in the fucking boondocks. I told them I was not getting out of the car and that I would sleep in the back seat. Old Captain True told me I shouldn't leave Niza in the tent alone and promised me that I was safe and that everything would be okay. Captain True had a very poised spirit and he helped me calm down. And I was able to take deep breaths and calm down. He told me Pisces and Caliber would walk me to the tents and that me and Niza had our own tents and they would be right next to us and we would have walkie-talkies.
Not the walkie-talkies, child. It's the walkie-talkies for me.
Oh my God. These walkie-talkies. Did they not have cell phones? Does he take their... Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
He asked if I needed the restroom, and I went with Niza, and we washed our faces, and I changed into my gym attire and sneakers instead of a dress and sandals I had on before. Pisces and Caliber began walking us back from the restroom towards the tents in the pitch black night. And then Pisces said the worst thing possible. When you guys drop your pot or empty your cup out here, just use your flash. I was shaking and said, fuck you mean use your flash? I'm not using the bathroom. Out here, if I have to go, I'm going to use the walkie and wake someone up to take me. I can't see anything out here. He said, okay, Mama Earth, it's just a test. I got you. Just let me know if you need anything. Niza and I went into tents. She immediately went to sleep. I couldn't even lay down. She kept chirping, they kept chirping the walkie-talkie to confirm the sound worked. And I just ignored them, and they had to keep chirping. And Niza finally woke up, and she confirmed the sound was good. I sat up and looked at the moon and stars, which was a clear, starry night, and just cried. I ask the universe to please protect and watch over us. After about 2 hours, I attempted to lay down, but it was freezing. The temperature truly dropped drastically, and I got up and chirped the walkie and told them I wanted to get out. No one answered quick enough, so I tried to wake Naza, but she wouldn't budge. I got out of the tent and walked to the car, and Pisces and Caliber were on guard. On guard what? So Pisces and Caliber were on guard, and I told them I want to sleep in the car. So I got in the back seat. I fell asleep for an hour, and then here comes Captain True again, and Naza showed up. He apologized about not letting us bring our comforters and realizing how cold it was. Wait a minute, why wouldn't he let them bring their comforters? And promised me that he would buy some new ones in the morning. Oh, when packing, I bet they didn't bring comforters. Okay. I told him it was okay and I understood. They turned the heat on in the car and we all slept for a few hours. When we woke up, we went straight to Walmart and they purchased the covers and bought some apples and snack bars for the next 5 hours. Could you imagine just eating apples and snack bars for 5 hours? Anyway, they stopped at a Waffle House for Subler noon. And everyone had the chicken sandwich and hash browns. Okay, that's great. We ate outside in the parking lot, and Naza and I sat in the shade, grounding while we ate. Everything went smooth for a while until my period came. Yeah, that's always a bitch. Down and leaked through my dress and onto the seat of the car. And so Laura rushed me into Walmart and we got feminine products for me. We ended up at the park by nightfall and got to Texas. I asked for some tea and the men told me Baba G said I should go to sleep and that I didn't need any tea. Oh, bullshit. Someone would be. Anyway, I sent him a message talking about Baba G on the WhatsApp asking why I couldn't have tea. And he never responded. Then Captain True called me into a meeting with Musa and Solar, saying to me that I wouldn't be staying with Baba G anymore in Cali, which is what he told me earlier that day on FaceTime. Of course, I flipped off at the mouth and said that it was because of Musa had complained about me to Baba G. And so they made it seem like I was being disrespectful about the previous night for not sleeping in the tent. I felt that Baba G was mad at me for whatever they reported to him. I called Baba G and he didn't answer. I went back and told the men that they were so unorganized and didn't care about the safety of the women and that they only focused on their own comfort. I cursed them out, saying that all I asked for was tea for my stomach during my cycle. But they must have given him some twisted info about me. They told me it was an order given from Baba G. I didn't like it. I could leave. I went back in the car and covered my face, then cried myself to sleep. I kept feeling so sick about being with carbonation and asking myself, why did I do this to myself? It's a damn good question. I'd be asking that too. The next morning, we woke up and had some more fruit with snack bars at the Walmart parking lot in the car. And Captain Musa called another meeting. So when Nature Boy ain't around, these mofos are calling meetings too. Must be a wonderful life. But anyway, with me
Too
and
much.
the same A-team, Musa told me I had to pack my bags and head home. I was in such shock. I started to panic. I yelled and said, "What did I do? Am I not allowed to express myself?" No, you're actually not. You're with the cult. But anyway. And they all busted out laughing. And Musa said, "Nah, Mama Earth, we're joking. It was all a test to see how you would react."
Oh, hell
and
no.
I literally jumped at Musa like, "What?" I was about to flip out. Oh my God, I can't believe you guys played me like this just because I wanted tea. Then we all laughed, and True told me, "You will be staying in the room with Baba G, Aya, and Malia." Then True told me to call Baba G immediately. I grabbed my phone, and he had already sent me a message that said, "Congratulations, you passed your first test."
He's so corny. So corny.
Really?
Corny. Like, what is this?
I'll save my commentary for later. Or at least I'll try.
Corny as hell.
I was still in shock and relieved at the same time. I called him FaceTime, and he laughed and said that he was proud of me and that the universe was testing me and teaching me to be humble. He then told me he wanted to speak with me privately. Then I walked to a nearby tree, and he told me I would be sleeping in his room in Hawaii at the Yurn. And he sent me a picture and asked if I liked it. I told him I loved it. It was truly beautiful. He told me that in Hawaii we would also be together as well. I said okay. In the back of my mind, I felt the pressure of...
He was just stringing her along with a piece of cheese. Period. He did not want that woman from jump. He seen her residuals, her businesses, the money, her dedication, and, her gullibleness, I guess you could say, naiveness. And, yeah, played on that. Period.
Maybe this means I have to sleep with him? But I wasn't sure, so I didn't say anything. I'm usually a person who instantly trusts my gut, but because I was in such a new, unknown element, and the fact that they just put me through a test, I didn't want to ask him, so I went with the flow. We kept driving on, and at Solar Noon, we had tuna sandwiches. Oh, she spelled it right. From Subway in the car parking lot. Shortly after we reached the Airbnb in California, before Baba G and the rest of the family, we all showered, myself first because there was only one bathroom, and we all got ourselves cleaned up. Baba G arrived a few hours later. We all greeted him at the door. He hugged everyone and was talking to everyone in the house. He was in a great mood. He called me outside to talk and told me that he was shocked that I had made it to Cali because he thought I was going to fail the test and quit. He said he got the report that I spazzed out more than Naza. Well, that is a little shocking, especially Naza.
I'm saying.
But I was very respectful. No body language of sexual energy like Naza, who they told him gave a lot of sexual body language. I told him she was very quiet the whole trip and how she cried a lot about cutting her hair and missing her kids. And she was checking Solar a lot. But I told him how proud of him I was, that he created such a community of good-hearted people. Well, now, wait a minute. You were just ready to kill him the night before because they had you somewhere in the butthole at a murder scene. Well, how True and Musa took such good care of me, and I felt very safe with them. But that I missed him and his smell. We kissed on the mouth, and he hugged me deeply. I felt his entire body warmth on me, head to toe. I was deeply in awe with this man. Natiri came outside with sage. She did what? Passing it all over us as if she wasn't being nosy. Alrighty then. But when she came out, I asked him to wait till she left because she was trying to listen. The fuck you need sage for outside, though. Eye rolls. He was like, nah, she's cool. She's a Capricorn like you. I said, I know, that she was being nosy. Being a Capricorn myself, I don't know what this has to do with the sign itself, but these people think it's every bit of your life. But moving right along. Baba G went on to tell me that he didn't want the world to know about me being with carbonation yet until we got to Hawaii. I thought it was strange, but in the back of my mind, I felt like he didn't want Nana to know. He knew once Nana saw me that she would want to come back, especially in Hawaii. I began to notice she would always leave and come back as soon as she saw him doing good and set up in a new place. I never really understand why she kept leaving. I thought it was because she couldn't handle the polygamy, but I was in for a new reality. I was so eager to know more about her, but none of the women liked talking about her. Gee, I can't imagine why. It's as if they were on pins and needles. Well, they were. I started to feel her energy closer and closer to us. I'm very sensitive to receiving information. I told Bob, well, I don't know about that. I mean, you just said you noticed that she leaves and comes back a lot. I told Baba G that she is getting closer, and he would tell me that she already had another man and would not return until her Saturn return, which is 29 years young. I thought it was 28, but okay. And she would come back to him then. I told him he was wrong, and every day she was getting closer. He would go into rants about how he didn't love her. He just wanted to be close to his daughter. Later that night, he called a meeting in his room and started explaining that he felt a lot of energy was off. He said that a lot. He asked if anyone was holding in something that needed to be expressed. Malia spoke up and said she felt like Star was trying to overpower her and that her and I were phony and jealous of.
Malia, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it.
Her. And that Star was being overly nice to try to get close to Baba G. Star started out with her usual spiel that she was not trying to dominate Malia. Even though we could all see it, she used to try and make Malia and take Malia's energy because Baba G was giving her so much attention. And he never gave her any. He would always say that Star was a man and he didn't like her sex.
Oh my.
But that she was very loyal to him and it was necessary to have someone like her in the cult. Apparently, a month before I got there, Star had left because she claimed to be pregnant from Baba G, even though she only had sex with him for 30 seconds and he did not come. She felt attacked by the group and ran away because no one believed her. She said Baba G told her that they were soulmates and that she knew they belonged together. But Baba G said he never said that. Star was one of the first ones to get a tattoo on her butt for Baba G before she even joined carbonation. She said she asked the universe for the truth and then had a dream about Baba G and knew he was the Messiah. She was extremely obsessive over Baba G and always tried to hide it, but we could all see through her. Baba G told her in the meeting that he didn't like her energy and she was being fake. I then addressed Malia and told her that she was projecting her feelings onto me because she's threatened how close Baba G and I are. No, you're not. Though you may have thought you were, you weren't. But I told her that Baba G and I have a very deep spiritual connection and that our charts is so deeply rooted in the mission and that he was God who has enough to share his love with all of us. I explained to her that she needs to get used to sharing him because he doesn't belong to anyone but the mission. What is the mission, by the way? And if anyone should be concerned about it, should be Nana coming back because I could feel her getting closer. Well, she wasn't wrong. She became very quiet, and Baba G said I was not correct about Nana, and that her, myself, and Aya, was his real type of woman, and that if he was in Babylon, that I would be the kind of woman he would choose. Yeah, he says that to all of them, but moving right along. Someone who was about her business and had a condo and a car and good money. Lots of ands, no commas. The whole room got super quiet. I was even shocked that he had said that. But what I heard behind it was that he was looking for opportunity. That raised a big red flag for me. Then Natiri whispered to me, I guess he has a new favorite now. And I blushed. But I knew it wasn't true. I always felt Baba G was into me. He showed me every second he got, and always told me how he felt. He then addressed Zoka and said her skin looked so horrible, and that he couldn't believe that she was allowing Solar to ruin her like this, sucking up all of her energy. That would be him, but okay. He told her she should not have a baby because it is a demon child. We all remember him saying that. He said it on a live. But that she was holding on to it because she should have miscarried. Miscarried by now. Wow, how do you fix your lips to say that to a pregnant woman? Zoka cried and said that she is testing herself to see what will happen. And he told her, you will have a miscarriage. That's what will happen. Zoka just kept crying. But I felt really upset about him telling her that. He went on to say, you know Solar is not good for you, and you don't belong with him. You are literally deteriorating. After watching her cry, I shed a tear because I always thought Zoka and Solar were twin flames, and they were perfect together. I tried to read the energy of Baba G, and it seemed like he was dominating her to submit to what he wanted, which was to focus on the mission. And he knows the baby will be a distraction, so it felt very ingenuine. I was so hurt, but he ended the meeting abruptly and everyone left. Later, he called me to the room, offered me a glass of wine, and told me I would sleep in the bed with Natiri, which made me uncomfortable because I was still getting to know her, but I didn't resist. She had such a softness to her. Okay. He slept in the other bed with Malia and Aya. Then, as we all sat in the room preparing the beds and Natiri changing clothes, which she had such a beautiful body, petite, and her nipple rings were everything. Aya and Malia were already changed for Musa bedtime. These people got some. Baba G walked back into the room and asked Natiri if it was true what Zoka had told him. She spelled true like true's the name. Okay. And then Zoka walked into the room. Natiri stood up shaking and said, Baba G, I was going to speak to you about this, but since you're asking me, I will be honest and admit that I still have very deep feelings for Solar. I keep dreaming about him and I can't help how I feel. Baba G asked her, then why are you in my room? Get the fuck out. She pleaded that she can't help her feelings, and Baba G told her, we'll take you and your feelings the fuck out of my face. And she said, Baba G, I want to apologize that I didn't speak up earlier, but I was going to tell you how I felt. And then she got her stuff and walked out. Baba G told I to come sleep with me in the other bed. Then we just listened to Baba G's music, which was always on point and vibe to sleep. It's interesting. All cult leaders have their own music that they make their members listen to. But anyway, he was kissing Malia and cuddled, and Aya and I were looking at our compatibility charts on the pattern app, which was so fascinating and so on point. We started developing a lovely bond. She's very unassuming, I could see that, and amicable. So I felt like I could open up to her. She recorded convos and always pretended to be sleeping, but was a spy for Baba G. We fell asleep next to her and felt very light. Unusually, I can feel people's energy, and with her, it was neutral. When I woke up, I felt relaxed. Later that day, I saw something very strange. Zoka was spending a lot of time with Baba G in his bed. Myself, Malia, and Aya sat across in the other bed and ate Chipotle for Solar Noon. We ate a lot of Chipotle. While him and Zoka, pregnant by Solar, laid together eating. I could feel Malia's annoyance, and she kept staring at them. I said to Malia she has to get used to sharing him, that he was here for all of us to reproduce him. As the Messiah, we have to support and trust him. These capitals, letters that don't belong. We have to support and trust him, and that he was dealing with Allah directly and would face his own mistakes, and that she only needed to support him and trust that his decision is what's best for the family. This is what he had taught me, that in order to fully absorb the knowledge, I had to become one with his mind mentally and physically. He told me there would come a point in time when I would actually worship him and bow to him once I realized who he truly is. She said it was very hard to deal with, sharing him, and that she wanted to apologize to me for saying that I was phony and jealous of her, and that she really enjoyed talking to me, and I believed that I could help her a lot. Baba G clapped after our open discussion, and everyone else clapped too. He said this is how we should be having meetings and talking to one another to work out our debilitations. If I never hear that word again. He said I had a lot of maturity which could help the women, which is why I'm there. I kept watching him and Zoka because I couldn't believe they were touching, kissing, and hugging while she was literally preggers for Solar.
Oh my, oh my, oh my.
First for Solar. You're 39. She's pregnant with Solar's child. Anyway, I was dumbfounded. I kept looking at them in the corner of my eye in disbelief. At one point, she lay in between his legs, face to face, and she was so smudged in him, I didn't even know if they were still kissing. But he was rubbing her back and her arms while she laid in between him. It was so super weird. She was laughing the entire time, which made me feel really skeptical about the setup. Okay. Because I really thought she loved Solar. Then he began massaging her with oil on her skin and kept saying he wanted to wash her hair for her. And she kept saying no, but he insisted. And then he went in the bathroom with her and called Aya in with them. And they claimed they only washed her hair and oiled her skin with tea tree oil. But from what I saw in the room, it was way, way too much activity with someone who was pregnant for another man. You're pregnant by, not for. God. In the next room, I felt disgusted, and I also started to remember the night before him saying, "It's a demon child," and that her and Solar were having, and that she didn't belong with him. It was sickening, like he didn't want anyone in love with their husbands more than him. And he doesn't. He doesn't want anyone to love anyone more than him. That's, anyway. Not to mention, he has slept with every single woman there except for me, including the women that were there with their husbands. Sheba was the only woman he said he would have made his wife, but that he couldn't have sex with her because she was a virgin, and it felt like he was hurting her and couldn't even have sex with her fully. I don't. Well, she was a virgin, but I don't believe he really cared that he was hurting her. He just wanted to make a point that he had a big. Everyone else he had been with had required vaginal, oral, and anal sex within order for them to receive his spirit DNA to embody the knowledge. He said that it was the only way to fully grasp the information from him. I remember asking him in one of our earlier conversations before I got there, how do the men know the knowledge so well? Oh, well, let's get into it. Has he slept with all the men too? He got really angry and said I thought he was gay and that he didn't want to fuck with me if I didn't trust him. He was very unpredictable. One moment he could be a dove and the next the devil. I mean that literally. Come to find out, in one of his downloads, he talked about what sex is. Sacred energy exchange. He said that all the women there except for me has received his DNA through swallowing his cum. Oh, disgust.
Oh my.
Or anal. No, it got worse. And that some of the men were open to it. Hold on. Sorry, y'all. I literally felt a little nauseated, but I'm back. Also received his sperm and made good use of it. He mentioned Pisces and Capybara specifically. And he said that any man who was open to it, he was willing to give them the knowledge as well. I knew it. I knew it. We all knew it the whole time. I almost gagged and had to keep the vomit down. Oh, just like me just now? I'm right there with you, girl. I started to realize that I was in something very sick. It didn't feel loving or spiritual. It felt like, OMG. What is this? I remember Natiri said to me, yo, Carmen's a bitch. I just saw Baba G and Soka, and that didn't look right. I told her he was washing her hair and healing her skin, massaging it with tea tree oil. Knowing damn well my stomach was knotted up, she said, nah, whatever is going on is shady, and watch, everyone is going to get the truth. Watch and see what happens. I left it at that, knowing that Natiri was probably salty, wanting to tell Solar what she knew, but I also felt her sincerely on that. But I kept quiet. I didn't realize it could get worse than Baba G pinning me on the wall and grabbing me by my neck. I would make squealing sounds, and he would say, yeah, you love to talk shit, but listen to you telling me to stop resisting him. He tried to grab me in the bathroom right after Zoka, and a lot after that too. He would kiss me and say, you ready to submit? Smiling, and I would always say no. And then he would flip out and grab my neck again and pull me down and say, you gonna learn to stop resisting me. I'm gonna F the shit out of you. You need to get real good. I'm gonna fill you up. I would stay kind of stuck in the bending position, not sure what to do, until he walked off and heard someone coming. Even though he was not monogamous with Malia at the time, he still didn't want her or anyone to hear him fooling around with me until we got to Hawaii. That's interesting, I guess. Even that night at Cookies, when Baba G called me in the closet, Malia was in the bed and Aya, and they could probably hear everything, especially Aya. This isn't my poor reading, this is her poor writing. I'm sorry. She's literally the spy to watch all the women and report every detail to Baba G. He always has a spy. It used to be Serenity. And I later found out that she always did an excellent job, except for when it was about herself. We only spent 2 days in California before leaving to Hawaii. But those 2 days were so turbulent, like the incident that happened with Baba G in the bathroom really shook me up. I couldn't figure out if I was being mad-handled. It's manhandled. But anyway, or if this was his way of joking. But my neck felt like it had a crook in it for weeks. Well, it probably was damaged. And it didn't help that he did the exact same thing several more times from time to time I was there. It was a very huge red flag. Oh, another one of those red flags. I'll be damned. That I knew I couldn't just ignore it like the rest of the things. But I was too scared to say anything. The women started having an attitude with me because he was giving me so much attention, especially Niza and Star. Niza would give me a deep, dirty stare, and I just ignored her completely. Star would straight up ask me, so nosy, how was the night with Baba G? I answered her very blandly and said it was nice. And just quickly walk away because she would try to glare into me to give her more information. The same day of Sophia getting all those alleged messages from Baba G, she stayed that night in his room, and I slept with the women in the other room. There were 8 of us in there. The guys slept on the floor in the living room, spread out. Malia, Zoka, I, and Baba G were in the other room. It was 25 of us total in a 2-bedroom Airbnb with 1.5 bathroom. I will say everyone was very clean about the house. Well, probably, no, he did keep a clean house. I thought she meant like physically. And keeping things in order and organized, especially Mama Sheba and Loyal. They were very detailed with cleaning up, and especially Sheba in the kitchen. I admired that a lot. That's great. The community feel was really strange at first to have no privacy, but after a while, I was very open and free, even though no one ever saw me naked, but Asia, Naza, and Fufu saw my breast once in jail. Speaking of jail.
Chapter 3, The Morning of Hawaii. Babaji had woken everyone up at 4:30 a.m. He came around the entire house saying, "Let's go, let's move, everybody be ready in 30 minutes. We all jumped up out of the bed, but not in enough time because when Babaji opened the door, we were still moving out of the bed. So he had us all do 25 squats. That was my first time doing squats, and I was really upset because I wasn't even flying out in the morning with the first group. I was flying out the following day with the same team as the car trip. 10 minutes later, he came into the room and said, "My bad, we're not leaving until 7 a.m. I thought the flight was early." I rolled my eyes, and he called me out and said, "My bad, Earth, you're not even going with us." So I just gave the head nod like, it's okay. I started helping the women get all of their clothes in order and luggage out. Everyone was getting dressed so beautifully and was so colorful. It was such a sight to see. Such gorgeous Black women, naked and free and comfortable in their natural skin. After about an hour, everyone was dressed. Babaji came out and he literally took my breath away. He was so beautiful. I had literally forgotten everything that had happened, including the night before. I told him he looked like a tropical god and that Hawaii wasn't ready. He smelled so delish and his swag was on 1,000. That's something I can never deny. His presence will stop you in your tracks. He commands any room, especially any women. The whole group got in the car. We all gave hugs and kisses, and I loved myself to everyone. And by then, Babaji was already outside. But I was getting so sad he was leaving, so I went outside to say bye. He had just finished saying bye to Caliber with a big hug on the grass. As soon as he saw me at the top of the stairs, he walked over to me and picked me up in the air, and I wrapped my legs around him, and he kissed for an entire minute. That seemed like eternity with the entire world watching. I could feel everyone staring. I was literally teared up. I could still smell him on me even after we finished hugging. Then Liza came in for a hug, and it was a normal hug he gave her. Then Price got a hug, and I told him I wanted another one. I wanted to be the last. He said, "Oh, you want to be the last, huh?" And he grabbed me and hugged me and kissed me again, then walked back to the car. I could have died right then and wouldn't have felt it. I was gone. It became an addiction to have him close to me, to smell him, to touch his skin. Liza and I got back to the room and both literally in tears just went back to sleep without saying a word. We both felt the sadness. Around sermon noon, Pice came to the door and offered us some fries, and we were very grateful and thanked him. Pice is one of my fave out of the men. Truly a genius, an all-around genuine person. Always positive and healthy perspective. Even though he was young, his mind was advanced. He felt like the baby brother to me, so I always looked out for him with food and snacks. I also wanted him to gain weight because he was so real thin. It was scary. His thighs literally looked like my arms. I hated it. Liza and I ate, and then I made us tea, and we sat on the porch and talked. She told me all about her life, how her kids were Hawaiian, and she couldn't believe we were going to Hawaii without them. She told me her ex-husband hated her for cutting her hair, and how she was a really good mother to her kids, and she loved baking. And that she was a stay-at-home mom losing her mind, and that she was really depressed, and that Babaji saved her from hurting herself. I listened to her and really felt compassion and told her how gorgeous she was. I took her picture and then asked Pice to come out and take some pics of us together. I sent the pics of us at the table having tea together to Babaji, and he loved it. Liza kept asking me what did Babaji say about the pic, and I told her he liked it. She had no phone because Babaji took it away from her with all the drama she caused in Atlanta from trying to call the cops and leave. It was a super dramatic scene with her wanting her money back and trying to leave until Malia and Zoka convinced her that she had nowhere to go and that the universe gave her a plan and family with carbonation and to trust the process. Babaji had told her she was just going to go out into Babylon and hurt herself, selling her body and destroying her life, and that she needed to calm down. But it took 4 women, Aya, Malia, pregnant Zoka, and Star, to hold her back from attacking Babaji and wanting her money back. She kept pleading that it all couldn't be gone in 1 or 2 days. Babaji called the finance team on the speakerphone and asked how much money was left in the budget of Niza's money. They explained everything was used for Hawaii to pay for the tickets and Airbnb in Hawaii. And he told her to stop running and just surrender to what is. But she threw her fist up, ready to fight the women. And it was a constant tussle until they got her out of Babaji's room. She was very little, but strong. She finally walked away and went to sleep. But the next day, it was the same shit. Over tea, she admitted she was happy that she stayed. Fast forward to Callie on the porch. We talked some more, picked some orange and lemon leaves off the trees, made more tea, and just relaxed in the room and slept some more. We couldn't wait for morning time to be on the flight. I know I couldn't wait to see Babaji. Our flight was early in the AM. 2 Ubers awaited us. It was myself, Loyal, Niza, Pice, Kite, Tron, and Caliber. We had one banana, so I gave it to Pice to split with the men. Nisa and I had nothing to eat because the plane only served cheese sandwiches, but we did drink the canned juices. I was super annoyed about not eating the sandwich because I knew Baba G would eat out sometimes and he had no restrictions. I ate one side of the bread and dug out the dough. It was a 5-hour flight and none of us had any money. They told us we would eat when we arrived in Hawaii. We had a connecting flight in Honolulu, which was another 2 hours. So by then, we were all famished. At the Honolulu airport, I remember going to Starbucks and asking for hot water and honey because I had tea bags. But Loyal told me I couldn't drink the water because it was tap. I literally ignored him and enjoyed my tea at that point. I was on the anger, hungry feeling. Heist kept talking me through it, saying, "It's just a test, Mama Earth. It's just a test." He was the only sound voice in my head at that point because I was fuming. Another thing we had to follow was walking in between two men at all times. Like when I went to get the water, Heist was in the front and Caliber was in the back of me, like a line. We couldn't walk side by side. It was a protection for the women at all times. It got annoying after a while because I wanted to go to Starbucks on my own and dig through my purse for change for a banana or something. But every step I took was monitored like a hawk. No matter where you were in the house or out, someone was always in your face, looking at you. We also had battle buddies. This is the person you were paired with in order to track your every move. If you go to the bathroom, your battle buddy should know where you are at all times, no matter what. So even though we had our own phones, you could never really call anyone because someone would see you and absolutely report you to Baba G. I actually caught Aya going through a plastic bag I had, and I had to ask her, "Do you need anything, babe?" She was like, "No." I said, "But you're still looking in the bag." And she said, "Yeah, I know it's yours. I just want to know you." I got furious and told her, "So you feel entitled to go through my bag? What the F? That's violating." Then Everett said, "That's her program. She does that." She said, "No, it's not violating. I just want to know you." I told her, "Well, I'm right here. But if you don't need anything from the bag and I have nothing to hide, why are you still in there?" I started to get loud and the other women got involved. And then she tried to turn the story around and said she was trying to figure out whose bag it was, but she realized it was my bag and stopped looking, which was total hogwash. Malia then said, one time I had left her phone in the room recording us while she was in the kitchen cooking, and I saw it recording. I was completely baffled. I knew then she was an informant, always looking for something to report to Baba G. Brown nosing, because otherwise she had nothing to talk about. Because he was never sexually on her. Because he said she was the most boring sex he's ever had. She makes no noises whatsoever. I began to really dislike her after that incident and kept a close eye on her. Then one day, she came and asked me for my phone. She said she needed to take pictures of the kitchen food to post, and she needed to use a good phone and edit first before sending it. I let her have the phone, which she kept for about 30 minutes. I didn't say anything, but I was super annoyed. She brought the phone back to me, and then a few minutes again, she said she needs it one more time to finish the pictures and that she was almost done. I gave it to her without blinking, but I could feel her going through my phone. I let it be and trusted the universe to guide me, but I was thankful I got to see her true colors and knew she was not to be trusted because prior to the incidents, I thought she was an angel. So we finally made it to Hawaii, and Musa was there to pick us up. He was very welcoming, and we got in the car. There were a lot of cookies, snacks, and ginger beer. And I thought it was for us when I saw it. But Musa quickly told us Solar Noon was waiting at the house for us. That's how things were set up with food. Babaji would eat a totally different meal than the family, and whoever is with him at the time before Nana came back got to eat with him. Like that day we had Chipotle in Babaji's room. The rest of the family had lentils and rice. He kept pistachios, snacks, and drinks in his room, which no one else had access to. I would straight up ask him for whatever I needed, from pads to wine to rose water spray, you name it. I had a very open communication with Babaji, but I did feel it was unfair to the family. We literally would all be watching a movie, and he's the only one eating fresh fries and ginger beer. I'd literally be drooling. Okay, so we got to the house in Hawaii. We had already saw the video on Instagram of Babaji on live, waking up at 5 a.m. to the sunset and telling the world we arrived in Hawaii and showing the camp setup. It looked so beautiful and we were super excited. Even though we were told the groups would be separated between the two houses, everyone stayed in the same house the first 2 days before we all got arrested for Babaji going live at the beach, giving proof that they broke the 14-day quarantine. We had no idea how serious Hawaii was about the quarantine or the turtles. But by the time Babaji started doing the lives, people were telling him that the Hawaii officials were after him. 2 of the agents even got on live with him pretending to just be natives, asking questions, but they made him admit on camera that he was at the beach, even though he had already deleted the videos of touching the turtles. Up until the night before the arrest, we were enjoying the house and having back-to-back meetings. Babaji had called a meeting, making all of us talk about what we wanted in a partner. He put Natiri on the spot, and she started talking about how much she loves Solar. Meanwhile, Zoka is 4 months pregnant and barefoot. So he called Natiri a vampire who wanted Solar's soul, and that she was filling a void and nowhere near ready for a relationship. Then he came back around to me, because at first I wasn't ready to answer. But eventually I said, I wanted someone who was with me out of choice, not obligation, or overextended commitments. A man who chose me daily, who wanted to be with me. He cut me off and said, Vamp, you're out of tune. You want his soul. You're also filling a void. And you're supposed to be more mature and actually able to be in a relationship. But your knowledge is nothing compared to the youngest people around you. You just have communication skills from the world. I stayed quiet and curled up in my chair. My feelings were crushed. He went on to Zoka, and before he could even begin, he said, You're letting Solar do this to you. Look at your face and skin, Zoka. Then he addressed Solar and said he had to give Zoka extra love because he knew she needed it to heal her skin. So he massaged her with tea tree oil and washed her hair. No sex or anything, but she needed his attention because Solar is literally taking from her. Solar's face got really red, but he said nothing. Then he asked Solar what he wants in a relationship, and he went on a tangent per usual. He overthinks and over-intellectualizes things. Babaji cut him off and started saying that being in a relationship with him is like being by yourself, that he doesn't need a relationship, that he knows how to self-soothe by playing with his nipples, his ears, sucking his thumb, and good music is all he needs. So he just needs a partner for sexual exchange, and that he loved the way Malia submitted to him sexually, but that after the sex, he likes his space. So in order to be with him, you have to be into your own thing and be on your own, because he's not going to give affection and attention to anyone. That he's always thinking about the mission. I felt so bad for Malia. It's basically just like saying she's just a piece of ass. But she was so strong, she never spoke up. She was just happy to get it whatever she could from him. And as for Zoka, no one but him and Aya will know what they did in that bathroom. But I was grossed out. Even after he gave his whole speech on being in a relationship with him is being on your own, he went on to say that some women just have that kind of pussy that makes you weak as fuck, no matter how much you just try to see them as just pussy. When you get some pussy you haven't had in a while, it's like, damn, I need that pussy back. I've been missing out. It felt like an undercut jab to Solar, and everyone just went silent. I was so turned off. Ew. He sounded like a womanizing pig. Like a woman is just a piece of meat to fuck on. But then Sheba and True spoke up about their relationship. And Sheba said the flames were gone and that True needed to be more loving. And they were honest and open and very clear with their communication. It was so refreshing to listen to two adults literally sharing their hearts and being authentic. After the meeting was over, I turned around on the stool chair and gave my back to Babaji. He made me sick to my stomach, especially the thought of him and Zoka while she's 4 months pregnant.
All right, family. That concludes chapters 1 through 3 of How to Get Out of a Cult by Sybil. We're going to go ahead and cover the next part, which is, I believe, is chapter 4 through 7. We're going to do that later this week. Thank you for everyone that came out. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, y'all.